Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Muse Arts Artist Holistic Wellness Series as part of the Ties to Community programming. My name is Veronica, and I'll be the mediator for tonight's session. For those who are new, the Artist Holistic Wellness Series invites artists who have knowledge on specific topics to engage in sessions designed for discussion and a sharing of perspectives on proposed themes. This year, we are back and better than ever as we explore the artist medium of music, specifically the healing powers of music, and how music can be used as a medium of expression, a tool for healing, and how it creates spaces for our communities. Tonight is our second last session of Artist Talks, so be on the lookout for our last episode next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Before we continue, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land we are situated upon. We recognize that we work and live on traditional Indigenous territories. Also wish to acknowledge that I am currently located on the traditional Indigenous territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit. I also wish to express my gratitude to Mother Earth for the resources that we are using, and I would like to honor all the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people who have been living on this land since time immemorial. In tonight's session, it's very, very exciting as we are exploring the diversity of music. As we discuss underground electronic music, we're going to explore the representation of women in the underground electronic music scene, highlighting emerging artists, and exploring how DJing can be used as a medium of expression and healing for many. Feel free to comment down in the comment section throughout this whole session to let us know your opinions and your thoughts. So without further ado, I introduce our very special guest, Ana Luisa. Ana, I welcome you into the space and invite you to introduce yourself a little bit further.
I was muted, of course. Thank you for having me. My name is Ana Luisa. I'm a DJ. I'm also a visual artist and an arts administrator. My background is in visual arts, actually. I went to school for photography, and I am also a part of a collective of Venezuelan artists through which I engage communities with different kinds of programming. And then 3 years ago, I started learning how to DJ, and my career in DJing has been just kind of kept growing. And that's also something that I'm pursuing now, as well as music production. I'm starting to learn how to produce, which is really exciting. So yeah, that's me. And I'm also a radio host and workshop facilitator.
Amazing. So you do a little bit of everything in the creative industry. It's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for being here. And I kind of want to start with how it all started way back when. So how did your musical journey start?
So it's funny, my best friend, when I told her I wanted to do this, she said, for my childhood best friend, she said, of course, you've been studying to be a DJ all of your life. You just didn't realize it until now. When I was like a teen and like in middle school and high school, I was always the go-to person in my like group friend for like the latest tracks, like, oh, what's latest track, da da da. And I remember spending like hours and hours on like LimeWire, downloading songs, and then burning CDs and making my mom and everyone in my class listen to those CDs. So I definitely think I have always had an affinity for music and for different types of music. And I think it started, when I was growing up, I always had an affinity. MTV was huge for that, actually. It was my favorite channel. And I never really thought of pursuing a music career. I don't know why. It just never was. Was never something like I like seriously considered. I was leaning more into fine art, visual arts. And then one day, this is where the spark actually like happened. I posted a story on my Instagram and said, if people would pay me to make playlists, I would be rich. That's what I just posted like a thought or something. And then a friend replied and he was like, isn't that what DJs do? And I was like, yeah, definitely, that's what DJs do. And so I was like, yeah. And I had an epiphany, like right there. I was working and I read that and I had an epiphany. I was like, this is what I have to do. This is what I have to do now. So I told my partner, like, I really want to do this. I really want to learn and he's so supportive, and he has a music background, and so he's like, yeah, definitely you should learn da da da. That was in 2019. And I got a mini controller and I started learning on my laptop, and then it kind of picked up from there. So yeah, that's how I got into it. That's how I realized I wanted to, was because a friend told me, hey,
Right.
this
When
is
you
what, this
post
is
something
literally what you're talking about.
online. Yeah. And that, it's funny when you said that. I've never thought of it like that. And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Just playlists being made for people, and just, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I want to know, like, was there a specific moment when you started where you had any doubts, because a lot of people when they start kind of older in a craft, they might think, well, I didn't start younger, or I'm kind of late on it, like, why start now? What were your opinions on that?
Definitely. There still is a lot of imposter syndrome, for sure. But at the same time, I'm a really curious person, so I was approaching it without a lot of expectation. I was just like, this is really freaking fun. Like, this is a lot of fun. So I was approaching it without expecting, oh, I'm gonna play in Boiler Room, or I'm gonna do whatever. I was just really having fun with it. But then as I started to like take it a bit more seriously and started to put pressure on myself, it really started to like weigh on me a little bit. Like, am I good enough? Like, will people like this music? Like, at the time I started because I wanted to hear more reggaeton and dembow and baile funk and different Latin genres that I don't really hear here in Toronto. And I was like, are people gonna vibe to this music? Am I gonna be good enough? I don't have a music background. So learning was really hard. I didn't even know what a BPM or beats per key, like nothing. I didn't know anything. So when I was learning, I had a lot of doubts in terms of like my knowledge and how I was going to get there, which kind of started when I started taking it a bit more seriously, when I started to think about it in a less playful way.
Right.
Yeah. And then that went away with practice. Like, practice really does build your confidence, for sure. And I still have it. And now that I'm producing, I'm going through it all over again. I'm like, I suck at this. I don't know chords. I don't know, like, I just have a good ear. That's it. So I do deal with that a lot, with imposter syndrome. And I think it's kind of inevitable, especially when you are a woman or a minority, part of a minority group. It's hard to not feel like you're an imposter in this field.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you so much for highlighting that. I want to know, what was your motivation behind your craft, even just like to start, because then you have how you started your journey, and then the motivation between why you make your music and how you make your music. So kind of take me through that.
Yeah, I think so I have different motivations. So on the one hand, I really love music and I love dancing, and the music that I play is music that you can shake your ass to. Like, it's music that you can dance to. I love making people dance. I love making just joyous music. I love that. And also music that is just hard hitting, like really just like that moves your core, I used to, when I was in high school, I used to be part of this like traditional music arrangement from Venezuela. I used to play these drums, and I really liked playing the drums because it felt so visceral. Just felt so good to play these like traditional drums. So that on the one hand, and then on the other hand, I feel very committed to my community, and I DJ. That's a big part of it, but also I like to create spaces for people to dance freely and be happy and have a good time. And then I also like to create spaces for people to learn and to have access to equipment. And so I also do like workshops with my collective, and also on my own. And I like to mentor. I like to teach. That's something that comes to me really naturally. So those are kind of my motivating factors, I guess.
Amazing. And when did you start like teaching? When were you like, okay, this is what I'm good at and this is what I want to continue doing? Like you said, you're part of a collective and you do workshop. When did that come to be?
I think I have always had an interest in like sharing knowledge. So
Right.
that's always something that I have been really good at. So I worked in university in the sorry when I was a student in college, I was a tutor, for example,
Oh,
and I worked as a student monitor in the photography center, helping students kind of with their prints and things. So I have always really liked sharing knowledge is something that comes really naturally to me, and mentoring people and like learning with them as well. So it's something that I know I'm good at, and I know that I really enjoy. And then this opportunity popped up to apply for a grant for Outreach
mhm.
back in early 2021. We applied for that, and I saw the call like 2 days before it was due, and I was like, guys, we need to do this. I sat down for 2 days straight, wrote a grant, wrote a whole syllabus, just like wrote everything, what the grant was going to be, what the workshops were going to be, and we ended up getting that grant.
Amazing.
And in the fall of 2020, so last year, we did the program. It was a DJ incubator for aspiring DJs, and we got to mentor for women, non-binary people of color, women of color, and non-binary people of color in the craft of DJing. So my friend Camila and I, who's also a DJ, also part of the collective, we did this program for 4 months in which we mentored these 4 people, and I really enjoyed that. I don't think I have ever felt so good doing something. And at the end, they put together this party and it sold out and they killed it. And I was just there like wanting to cry because they were so good. And like knowing that I helped create that space and that I helped them kind of overcome like imposter syndromes and be able to perform and be able to learn and learn the technicals with whatever I could offer. I'm not an expert. I'm really just an emerging DJ still, but whatever I can offer, I will. And that was that moment, like at that closing party, seeing them perform. I was like, this is amazing. This feels better than any gig, that anything. Like this feels better than anything I have ever done. So that's when I knew, and throughout the program, of course, as well, that like I really like teaching. And so we're applying for the grant again this year. We'll hear back soon. Hopefully we'll get it. And hopefully it's something that can like continue. So yeah, that's how it started with that grant. It kind of sparked an idea and then we got the ball rolling, and then seeing the results was really satisfying and like really fulfilling.
Of course. Yeah, I can imagine like the community arts and the collectives that, especially here in Toronto, that we see and it's the end product that kind of gives you that gratification, and that's like it was all worth it, and this is what I do. So thank you so much for bringing that to light. And I want you to take me kind of through the journey of the workshops. Like when you go in, like what do you do with the people?
This one wasn't, it was the first time we did it, and it was online. So we applied for it to be online because we did it was kind of the height of the pandemic early last year. And so we applied for it to be online. We didn't really have a budget to do it in person. So it was definitely like a little weird, but we ended up having practice sessions as well in person, which was good. So essentially, my friend Camila and I plan the sessions in advance, and we plan like who's going to teach what and how we're going to do the dynamic. And then before any of the workshops actually happen, we meet with the participants and we like all get to know each other, and then we get to know what their needs are, what their fears are, what they want to learn, what they actually are not that interested in, what their goals are. And then we cater or kind of tweak a little bit the workshop to make sure we meet that,
Right.
and which is like a really huge part of it. It's a huge part of it because that way you can, and we all obviously have check-ins as well throughout, just to make sure that we are on track and that they are getting what they want to get out of. This was so also a big part of the work that I do is I want to make sure these people who are doing work are getting paid. So we did 4 workshops. They were free. And then we did a mix making part of the incubator, in which the participants got to plan and record mixes. And so they got paid for making those mixes, which then got aired on ISO radio, which is the radio that I play at. And so they got paid to make those mixes. And then they also got paid to perform in the final party. So yeah, it's all about like starting with the basics and then building off from there, making sure everyone learns at different paces, right? So it's making sure, how is everyone doing? Who's having difficulty with what? Who can help? Having the practice sessions. We did one at ISO and we did one at Pride Toronto. I'm a resident there right now, so I get access to the space, which is great. And having those spaces was good because that way we could all be around the equipment and kind of ask questions on the fly. It's more intuitive than online, right? And they also got to create this little community that is so important when you're trying to get a foot in the door. Having people with you in that journey is that is the one thing, is having people there who have your back and who support you and who are cheering you on and helping you, and you as well in return, right?
Amazing. Yeah.
That was a bit of a ramble, sorry.
No worries. It's really nice to see your perspective and like why you do what you do. I kind of want to know like what was their response. Of course, they were learning through their journey. I assume they had, doubts and they had so much questions, but at the end when they finally performed, how did they feel? Like take me through their perspective.
Yeah, we actually did I don't think we ever got to do a debrief at the end because it was just so hectic, but we did have a survey that went out, and the responses were just really great. Like they all felt a sense of self-confidence after performing. There's something about performing in a way that you are happy with it that really boosts your self-confidence. And they all felt at the end that they could actually learn something new, and that this thing that felt really daunting in the beginning, none of them had any background. They just had an interest, but none of them had like any background in DJing, which can be really daunting, right? So at the end, their response was that they all felt like they accomplished the goal. Now they have this like skill set to build off of. They have this community that supports them. They have us as well, the organizers who also support them. We're still in touch. We still chat and like see each other at events and things like that. So it was great. It was really great.
Amazing. I think you just got somebody that's interested in these workshops. That's amazing to hear. And it's more like, when you're saying these words, I'm thinking of like a holistic exchange, right? It wasn't just like, I'm going to teach you something physical. Like you said, you're meeting the needs mentally and spiritually of these people. So it was really nice to see that you're highlighting the holistic exchange between you and the other people. It's really amazing. I also want to touch on like what other opportunities has your musical career granted you? Like you said, you do workshops. Like what else are you doing?
Yeah, I have platforms here and there. They're not huge, but I have them. And what I like to do is share those platforms. So my collective, it's called Colectivo Satelital, has a project called Cuarenteca, which started in the pandemic. So actually Cuarenteca was the kind of the project leading these workshops. So through Cuarenteca, we also throw parties. And throwing parties is something that I'm now getting into more. And this is like a platform that I can also use to highlight emerging DJs. I'm throwing a party on the 25th, and I'm bringing my friend Escobar, who is doing their debut in my party. And so that feels really good. And I also have my radio show on ISO Radio. It's a 2-hour show. So at the first hour, I highlight mostly Latin American electronic music, and a lot of it is underground. So a lot of it is people who are making amazing music that not a lot of people are hearing, you know. Some of them have like their loyal following, but it's definitely underground. So I really like to highlight them, include track lists so people can refer back to them and hear their music. And so sharing music, like when DJing, all you're doing is selecting music and sharing it, right? So I'm really big on sharing track IDs. Like if you like a track that I'm playing and you come to me and you ask for it, I'm going to give it to you, because at the end of the day, all I'm about is about sharing the music that these sick rad artists are creating, right? And the second part of my radio show is actually when I bring on guests. And I have been focusing, I started in August, the radio show, last August. So what I have been focusing on is local DJs. I had one friend, Moret, who is he's Venezuelan, he's based in Iowa, he sent a mix. But for most of my shows, I have local Toronto-based DJs come to the show, and they're mostly emerging DJs that I like to, you know, put on, because that's how I get my opportunities. A lot of them is my friends putting me on, and my friends like giving me opportunities, and I like to give that back, right?
Exactly. Amazing. So would you say like this is how you mostly build community through your music? Would you say the radio show? What else do you do for community wise?
Yeah, so for community, so it's a lot of different aspects. So the radio show is great. The radio show allows me to connect with DJs that I haven't really heard play that much, but I'm interested in, so I bring them on. It allows me to connect with producers from the music that I play. They're like, oh, this girl in Toronto's playing my music. Who is she? Right. So I like build a rapport with them that way. And then it's also about supporting my friends' like events. That's also really big. So going to my friends' events, even if I'm not playing, going to other events that maybe my friends are not organizing, but that I think are really sick, and introducing myself. And that's how I have built my community, which is still very much growing. It's by supporting and building genuine relationships, because I don't like to call it networking. Networking feels just a bit corporate and fake, that the
Yes,
word.
yes.
I have an apprehension with the word. But I think it's all about genuine relationship building, and seeing who you vibe well with and who maybe not so much, and that's fine. So definitely going to events, putting my friends on, my friends putting me on, putting on people who are my friends but I think are sick. And my radio show also has helped me. And shout out to Josephine and Frieza. They are the directors of ISO Radio, and they just like do so much for the community. It's wild. And they put me on. They gave me a slot, and they're great. And they are my inspiration for community building is Josephine and Frieza for sure. JMKM and Frieza. That's her DJ.
Nice. That is very good. And once you say this, I've talked to multiple artists throughout this whole like series, and they're all very different. Like some are vocalists, some are percussionists, all musicians, and it's funny to see different ways how people build community. Like some people will do like live shows, interactive workshops, but you're the first to say anything about a radio, and it's kind of. And I like the inspiration you get from people that gave you the opportunity. So you're trying to do the same to others. I've kind of seen that was like an underlining theme I'm seeing in all the sessions. Once I talk to all these artists, they're kind of trying to replicate what they would like to see in their communities, right? So that's amazing to hear. Also, I want to know, what community do you mostly focus it? Like you said, you do Latin American music. So what communities do you make your music for, or do you like spotlight?
Yeah, definitely. I spotlight. So when I throw parties, I like my parties to be everyone is welcome. to come, as long as they follow like our code of conduct, which is simply no harassment, no, no racism, please, like nothing. Just come here to have a good time. When it comes to like spotlighting, I have been spotlighting mostly queer and trans people of color, Black people as well, and Latin American people for sure. So that's kind of the people that I've worked with the most in like both the opportunities that I give through my radio show, through my lineups when I'm booking people in these events that I have, and through my workshops, like the people who I choose are going to participate in the workshops, because I feel like these are the people, some of the people who need it the most, and who have the most barriers, who face the most barriers when accessing. And I also, Cuarenteca is also big on giving opportunities to different people who are susceptible to experiencing misogyny within the music industry, which is also a big part of kind of our core values.
Amazing. Yeah. And that's a perfect segue. I was about to ask, like, what are your opinions on the representation of women in the DJing field, the underground electronic scene? Like, you, of course, as a woman and an emerging artist yourself, like, what was your experience in the field?
Yeah, loaded question. This is a really difficult one, I think, because it's very big. I can't really speak for all women, and women like is obviously an umbrella term. There are many identities that fall under that, and there within those identities, trans women, Black women, queer women, disabled women, women of color, non-binary folks, like within all these different identities, there are intersections, and within those intersections, there are different experiences. So I personally don't I cannot like speak to the broader like experience of women, because that's like a really big like umbrella, but I can speak to my experience and maybe what I have learned from my friends' experiences. So I think I have been really lucky, because I have had a lot of people who put me on, who book me, who allow me to use their, they have connections with venues and they allow me to throw parties. And I've had a lot of people who have supported me, genuinely supported me, not for optics, not to tick off a box or whatever, but that have genuinely supported me. And that has been my experience so far in my scene, in the scene that I'm involved with, because I have been in spaces sometimes where I don't feel too comfortable. And I know that maybe being in that space would maybe put me on, but because I don't feel comfortable, I would rather just not. Right. So I have stuck with the people who I have genuine connections with, who genuinely want to support me and other folks. And that I have been really fortunate to connect with those people and to have this like amazing community support. Now, that being said, I know that maybe to give the next step, right, to play like larger venues, bigger parties, bigger festivals, bigger events, I am probably going to have to work 10 times harder than like a white cis male on the lineup, obviously, right? And somebody who is a Black trans woman is going to have to work a million times harder, right? So it is hard. I think it's better. It's gotten better, but I think it's definitely, there's a long way to go. And I think it's not just, I can't remember who was saying this on their stories, but someone was saying on their stories the other day that it's not just about representation. It's also about, are these women getting paid the same? Are these people getting fair treatment? Are you just booking them because you want to have a 50% female lineup? Exactly. Or are you actually giving them good times, like time slots to play? Are you actually paying them well? Are you actually creating a space where they can thrive, where they don't feel harassed and mansplained and unwelcomed and uncomfortable? So that is a big part of it. It's honestly not just about representation. I think representation is a buzzword these days, and it's about optics a lot of the time. So I think it's going up beyond that and seeing the other aspects of it, right? So there's this one documentary called Underplayed. It's on Crave, and I think it's also for rent on YouTube. And it talks about the representation of women in the electronic music scene. And it has its flaws. It's not perfect, but it's a good, I enjoyed watching it. And there's a statistic, I think it's women make up, I believe it's 3%. This was back in 2020 when the documentary came out. Women make up 3% of the technical and production roles in the music industry, and women of color take up 0.3% of the technical and production roles in the music industry, right? That is wild. I mean, I'm not shocked, but that is wild. And in one of our workshops, my co-facilitator Camila was showing these statistics in the first workshop, and she was saying, if you ever feel imposter syndrome, this is why. You know what I mean? Like, this is why you're feeling like this. It's not you. Like, you're not the problem. You know what I mean? Like, it's the industry, it's the environment. It's, you're not seeing yourself, right? You're not seeing people that look like you be paid the same, treated fairly, and all these things, right? So yeah, those are some of my thoughts. Like,
for sure, yeah. And no, you brought a lot of valid thoughts into this conversation, and it's going beyond the representation. It's like, okay, let's really sit down and not even start comparing, because it's not even about equality at this point, but equity. You know what I mean? Like, we can't be on the same level at this point. We cannot be doing that, right? So it's kind of like going forward with those thoughts, and then that kind of came to mind, like, how is the diversity in Toronto, you would say, compared to, like, have you played anywhere else? Have you been in the, like, maybe DJing, and it would just be in Toronto?
Yeah, just in Toronto for now. Yeah.
And how have, because obviously, like, when we talk mainstream, like festivals and like different parts of the world, it's very hard to compare. But from your experience, like, how is the diversity here amongst not even women, but amongst all genders, all representations, all identities?
I'm not too sure because here's the thing. In the scene that I am and the parties that I frequent, they are parties that are led by Black, people of color, women, queer. Like, these are parties that are led by and created by and for these groups of people, right? So and these are the parties that I frequent, and I feel really good about it. But I haven't really tried to go, not yet. Like, I haven't had the opportunity to, like, deal with, like, a bigger festival. I'm very much emerging and very much DIY right now. Like, those are the spaces that I'm kind of moving in right now. So I'm not too sure. And I haven't played outside of Toronto yet. So I think people in Toronto are doing a lot of the work that they shouldn't be doing themselves. You know what I mean? Like, just going above and beyond to, like, there aren't any spaces for me, so I'm just gonna go ahead and make my own space, which is really hard in Toronto. It's really hard. Venues are expensive. Like, it's hard. It's really hard. So there's, like, all these amazing people who throw all these parties and create these spaces because they have to, you know. Also, they may very well really enjoy doing that, but I think it's also because of the need. There's a need, you know what I mean? And that's also what I kind of have to do as well, because the Latin parties that exist, I don't just play Latin music, but when I was first starting, I was like, I don't like these parties. Every time I go to these parties, I'm literally harassed. Like, I don't like it. I don't like it. So that was my first motivation to become a DJ. Was I go to these parties, all these dudes, playing, and also on the dance floor. On the dance floor, I'm harassed. Like, I'm just not having a good time. Just not having a good time. So not good. So what do I have to do? I have to go ahead and make my own spaces, which is really hard, right? And shout out to, you know, the people, Chippy Nonstop, Toronto legend, just amazing. She's one of my main inspirations. And she also runs Intersessions, which is it's a workshop series that kind of spotlights the gender disparity in electronic music and allows people to access industry standard equipment. So like CDJs, which are really expensive and really inaccessible to both rent and obviously purchase. So she runs these workshops, which were the workshops that I frequented, and sometimes I also still go, back in like 2019, 2020. And that's where I met a lot of people, actually, going to these workshops. That's how I got my hands on CDJs for the first time. That's how I got to learn CDJs, actually, was thanks to Chippy. And Nino also was there sometimes, and Baby Girl, and just these people who really care about the community, who are trying to just make Toronto a better place for us in the nightlife and beyond. So just big ups to like just everyone in the scene, just ISO Radio, Chippy Intersessions, my friends at Reconstructed Club, Pep Rally, the party that Chippy puts on is incredible. So yeah, I think there's a lot of people doing the work, but also a lot of the work that it's like unfair to have to like to go through this, right?
But it's like, yeah, some people are like, they're giving this opportunity already, but we have to create them, right? It's that difference that we see, definitely. I wanna kind of touch base on how you're moving forward with, I know you advocate for emerging artists and you have a voice and you have a platform. So how are you gonna move beyond that? Like, what are your next steps?
Good question. I think, well, this year, I'm thinking this year, I'm hopefully getting that grant again, hopefully running the workshop, but in person, making it better. I also want to do more workshops, just one-off workshops that I don't necessarily need to like apply for funding for, that I can just hit up venues. I'm trying to work on that. Trying to see if I can secure a spot where I can just do like one-off workshops. What happened with my workshop last year is that it focused on the basics, which is great, but then I feel like there needs to be a follow-up workshop series around industry standard equipment, because learning the basics, you can do it from home. It's like somewhat accessible. You can like watch YouTube videos. Actually touching the equipment, especially the more expensive equipment, is hard, which I think it's why Chippy started Intersessions in the first place. It's because CDJs are like really inaccessible, but they're pivotal. You need to know how to play CDJs in order to be booked in a lot of spaces, right? So I think that's something that I really want to do. And I'm also focusing on making my own music and supporting my friends' events. And we have some really just sick events coming in April. Some international artists coming, and we're playing with them, and just really grateful for all these opportunities. And looking forward to keep working with my collective. I don't do this in a vacuum. Like, I do this with my collective most of the time. I do this with my community. I couldn't do all this work by myself. I really do rely on like the synergy that we all bring and that creates by all of our resources being like together. You know, I have a friend who has a 6 space and a friend who has an XDJ. I now have an XDJ too, but you know, we all have like resources that we can like come and put together and make something really sick.
Yeah, it's an amazing representation of what community is, right? Especially a community of women or women identifying people. Like, it's just it's really good to hear this and just like know different perspectives, because I know a lot of people watching this right now, they might have no idea about the electronic scene in Toronto, or they don't, you know, they're not into this type of music. So it really depends. And thank you so much for highlighting that for people, because a lot of people wouldn't understand unless they have these conversations, right? And I think lastly, I just want to touch on like the whole theme of this series, like the holistic wellness for artists and for people that engage with these artists and the community. So like, why do you think your music is a holistic medium of expression, of healing for many?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I'm focusing more on my holistic well-being.
Right?
Myself, it's hard. It's really hard, especially when you have to like work a 9-to-5 job and then also have your gigs and then also have like your project and then engage with the community, and it's like really hard. You end up like not really taking care of yourself. So like, I guess my view on it is I have to really learn to take care of myself first, and then in order to be able to like really engage other people in like a holistic way, which is something I'm like actively trying to work on. This scene is also like, just the nightlife in general can also be really toxic, right? It can be dangerous sometimes, depending on how you identify. It can be there's a lot of like addiction in this type of spaces. So it's important for me to always remember my values, who I am, what I want to do, what I don't want to do, who I want to engage with, who I don't want to engage with. And I think that eventually feeds my soul and my mind and my body and everything. Taking care of my body, I've been trying to do that. It's really hard, especially in the pandemic and being at home a lot of the time. So yeah, I'm really mindful of all of that, but it's also hard. Like, I'm not an expert in it at all by any means.
Right.
But I think music,
yeah,
and I think music, just taking away like the lifestyle and everything, and I think music is so sick. Like, music is amazing. There's this one documentary, what's it called? It's on Netflix. They explain things. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Something explained, like music explained or money explained.
Yeah. There's
something.
like of each theme.
Yeah, and there's one on music, and I really encourage people to watch that because it's amazing. It shows you how, like, with the research that we have, we are the only species that can experience music in the way that we do. So for example, like, certain animals can experience rhythm, or certain animals can experience timbre, or certain animals can like sing a melody or something, or like, can't remember how it went, but we are the only ones who can experience all of the different aspects of it. And when I learned that, I thought that was incredible. I thought that was pretty sick. And music, I would say the majority of people use music to like de-stress and to feel happy, or to maybe cry even harder, or to, like, you know what I mean, or to motivate themselves or something. So I think music is extremely powerful, and it is why I really like doing the work that I do, and I love sharing it. And now I'm trying to make it as well. I'm trying to make the music. So yeah, I love music. I think music is amazing.
Yeah, 100%. And I've had this like conversation, and I've asked this question every session, and we all come to the same conclusion that music is the most powerful thing. And we all, like, there's an interconnection between all the people that listen to music, whether you like it or not, right? It's like this unconscious connection with some person. Some people, they vibe to the same genre, which is amazing. Or, you know, I'll show you like my techno music and you show me your country, and then we'll vibe to it together, right? It doesn't have to be that exact same thing. And it's crazy because, like, I always say, like, I can't live without music, and it's a genuine statement. Like, I couldn't live without it, because why is it 9 a.m. and I'm playing hard bass techno? And my mom's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I have to get up. I have to
I
be
have to.
motivated by something, right? So it's something so powerful, and it'll change your mood in 1 second. Like the sun is out, but then I added some Bob Marley today in my morning, and then
Ooh,
wow,
so
like
good.
my day was just changed, and it's
So
like
good.
I'm ready for the day. So everything you're saying is just resonating so much, and it's so true, and everybody watching will understand exactly what we're saying, because
Yeah.
there's, I mean, if you don't listen to music, that's your thing, but you can never say that it's never impacted you in some way. You know, since we were born, in our mother's stomachs, we've been listening to music, rhythms, humming, melodies. Like it's always been a part of our lives, and it'll continue to be a part of our lives. So that's why I think it's such an important holistic tool, that a lot of artists and a lot of people use today in their everyday lives, right?
Yeah. And then you know what? I also think it's important, silence. I love silence.
100%.
100%. You know what I mean? I think,
Yeah.
and it's like a beautiful balance, like a dance almost. There's certain, you would be surprised how, like, because I'm a DJ, people are surprised when I say that most of the time I'm in silence. I'm not even, I can't be listening to music all the time. You know, you also need like a break, and then when you take it up again, it's just this rush, just this, feels good.
Yeah. It's like with everything in life, once you have too much of it, and then when you don't have it, you're like, ah. But then when you have it again, it's like that
Yeah.
satisfaction and that gratification that, wow, I'm thankful enough to be able to hear this music, to be able to make this music, or have this knowledge on this type of specific topic and all that. So it's, yeah, there definitely has to be a balance, 100%. And I think lastly, I just want to, like, I want to talk personally now. Like, I want to get into like DJing and the DJing field and the electronic music field. So what advice do you have for people, women, and all non-binary? Like, what advice do you have, like, for people that want to get started and want to make it big one day, or anything?
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things. I think the first one is know that you can. Like, I think a lot of what stops people from doing things is thinking that they can't. But
Of course.
like I did it. I didn't have any music. I didn't know anything at all. And I learned, and I'm still learning, right? So I think this is something that I'm reminding myself when I am learning how to make music, is reminding myself that I am capable, that I have all the tools I need, and that I can do it. So once you internalize that, and you like accept it, then everything else becomes possible, right? So like then the practical things can come into play, which are like bettering your craft, like studying, watching videos, watching other people play, seeing what resonates with you and what doesn't, learning the basics, and then taking it further. So that's one thing. Bettering your craft, researching, asking people who know, things like that. So kind of the technical knowledge part of it is like important. The research part of it is also really important. So seeing what other DJs are doing, what other DJs are playing, what kind of music you like, developing like a style throughout time. My style has changed so much.
Right.
I don't think this is like super important in the beginning, but maybe having like a bit of an understanding of what you like, it's important. And I think lastly, putting yourself out there is it. Like, once you're ready, or even if you don't feel like you're quite ready yet, just do it. It's hard. It's really hard. We fear judgment. We fear criticism. We fear our self-criticism. We're usually the biggest critics.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
Like, people out there are probably just too busy being critics of themselves to like be thinking about what you're doing. So I always tell the people that I teach workshops to put yourself out there, record a mix, put it on SoundCloud or Mixcloud. Right now I'm telling myself, just make a shitty song and put it out there. Like, it's fine.
Right.
It's okay. Like, a ton of people out there are putting out songs that I don't like. So why wouldn't I put out the song that I like? You know what I mean? So putting yourself out there, putting your work out there, learning how to not be so critical of ourselves. Like, think about when we were kids, we would just draw for fun,
Right.
and like not be super attached to it, just drawing for fun, or like doing whatever. So I'm trying to reconnect with that feeling for sure. And relationship building is also huge, so like, which is also part of putting yourself out there. It's like going to events, or like going to the kind of scene you're interested in, meeting people, starting to build like meaningful connections with people, which is eventually what's gonna give you the opportunities. It's what happened to me. The people who have given me the most opportunities are the people who I met and I vibed with, and I like became friends with, or just met once and like really vibed, or they followed me on Instagram. I follow everyone that I admire on Instagram, and sometimes they follow me back, and I'm like, sick, you know. Social media, for better or for worse, it's the tool, right?
Exactly.
It's a tool. Hitting up the local radio, that's how I got my radio show. Like, I hit them up in 2020. I was making mixes. They were airing mixes because it was a pandemic, they weren't open. I was like, I have a mix, can you air it? Like, you know, listen to it and let me know what you think. And then Josephine was so nice and was like, yeah, I'll air it for sure. Hi. She followed me back. She aired my mix, and then we built a relationship from there. We became friends, and then I ended up having a slot in ISO radio. So I think just knocking on doors is also really important. And on the doors you want to knock on, not every door. not the ones that you're not interested in, or the spaces that you don't want to be a part of, but the ones that you do, right?
Right, of course. It's
That
just
was
like
a lot of advice. Sorry.
No, it was amazing. It was great. It was great. And you kind of tied everything that we talked to in the conversation, and you just summarized it to this and this and this. And it's very clear. And it's just taking that first step. It really is.
Yeah.
It's like letting go of that fear and that doubt, and just jumping into the deep end. And just, I'll drown or I'll swim, but I'll do something, right?
Yeah.
It's just that first step that we all have to take.
Yeah, or even baby steps, but just, I think doing something every day, or doing something regularly, building confidence, that definitely builds confidence. And believing it for yourself first is like really important. But I have also learned to believe it for myself as I put my things out there. You know what I mean? Like, as I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna put this mix up, and then the reception is good, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I am good at this,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the advice, and thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you and getting to know your journey, and your sharing the perspectives that you have. It was really an amazing session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Veronica.
We'll see everybody next Tuesday for our last session of Artist Talks. I hope you all enjoyed the session. Ana, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram, Ana Luisa. That's ANALUISA, which is my name, Ana Luisa, and then a bunch of A's. And then from there, I'll probably have in my link in bio like my Mixcloud, and probably in my bio I have my radio show and things like that. But yeah, Instagram.
Amazing. Well, we'll make sure to put your in the description of this live stream. So then, of course, you can go check out all the links, and of course, just enjoy all her music, everything that she has to offer. So thank you so much again, and we'll see you all next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.